All aboard!
Welcome to the Storytime Train. Please subscribe to enjoy more videos.
Turkey Claus by Wendy Silvano, illustrated by Lee Harper. Thanksgiving was over and Turkey was safe. But then he overheard Farmer Jake and his wife Edna talking about what to have for Christmas dinner. And guess who was at the top of the list?
I do love a nice turkey dinner,
said Edna. Oh no, thought Turkey, not again. But Turkey had an idea. The children had mailed their Christmas wishes to Santa Claus. Maybe Turkey could ask Santa for a Christmas wish too. A wish that he would not be eaten for Christmas dinner. But it was too late to mail his wish to Santa. Turkey would have to go see Santa himself. Turkey arrived at Santa's village.
Excuse me,
said Turkey.
Where can I find Santa?
No one sees Santa the day before Christmas,
said an elf.
He's too busy making his list and checking it twice.
Oh, gobble gobble,
said Turkey. But looking around gave Turkey a new idea. What if he didn't look like a turkey? What if he looked like a Christmas tree? Surely a Christmas tree could get to see Santa. His costume wasn't bad. In fact, Turkey looked just like a Christmas tree. Almost.
Ho, ho, hold it,
cried the elf.
No turkeys in Santa's village. You have to go back to the farm.
How do you know it was me?
Asked Turkey.
Trees don't have legs,
said the elf.
Oh, gobble gobble,
groaned Turkey. Turkey looked around again. I've got it, he thought. Surely a reindeer could get to see Santa. His costume wasn't bad. In fact, Turkey looked just like a reindeer. Almost.
Halt your hooves,
cried an elf.
No turkeys allowed in Santa's village today. You have to go back to the farm.
Oh, how could you tell it was me?
Asked Turkey.
Reindeer don't have wings,
said the elf.
Oh, gobble gobble,
moaned Turkey.
I've got to see Santa.
Turkey looked around for another idea. Candy was being loaded into Santa's sleigh. I've got it, he thought. Surely a candy cane would be allowed inside with Santa. His costume wasn't bad. In fact, Turkey looked just like a candy cane. Almost.
Wait a merry minute,
cried an elf.
Turkeys are not candy. You have to go back to the farm.
How could you tell it was me?
Asked Turkey.
Candy canes don't have beaks,
said the elf.
Oh, gobble gobble,
howled Turkey.
I just have to get in to see Santa.
Turkey looked around and around. He saw Mrs. Claus bring a plate of cookies to the elves. Surely Mrs. Claus could get in to see Santa. His costume wasn't bad. In fact, Turkey looked just like Mrs. Claus. Almost. Turkey walked right up to Santa's house. An elf opened the door.
Snow way,
said the elf.
No turkey is getting in here today.
How'd you recognize me?
wailed Turkey.
Mrs. Claus doesn't have feathers,
said the elf.
Oh, gobble, gobble, gobble.
Turkey sighed.
I'm almost out of time. I'll never get to ask Santa for my wish.
Turkey looked around desperately for one last idea. Then he saw it. His costume wasn't bad. In fact, it was his best yet. Ding dong! An elf brought in the box.
What's this?
Said Santa.
A present for me?
Out popped Turkey.
Merry Christmas,
He cried.
gobble, gobble.
Ho, ho, ho. Ha, ha, ha.
Laughed Santa.
What are you doing here, Turkey?
Turkey explained his Christmas wish. Santa smiled.
I think I have just the right disguise for you.
And he did. It was Turkey's best Christmas ever. The end.
How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But, whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos. Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now, hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find some way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow, he knew, all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early, they'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, 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 noise. That's one thing he hated, the noise, 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 noise. Then the Whos, young and old, would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Whos would start singing. They'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? Then he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do, the Grinch laughed in his throat. And he made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat, and he chuckled and clucked. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer." The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there was none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" and the sleigh started down toward the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were dreaming sweet dreams without care, when he came to the first little house on the square. "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch. But if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. These stockings, he grinned, are the first things to go. Then he slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant, around the whole room, and he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums. And he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimbley. Then he slunk to the icebox. He took the Who's feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took their last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. "And now," grinned the Grinch, "I will stuff up the tree." And the Grinch grabbed the tree and he started to shove, when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter, who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santy Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But you know that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there, then I'll bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child. Then he patted her head, and he got her a drink, and he sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. Then the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire, and the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who's houses, leaving crumbs much too small for the other Who's mouses. It was 1/4 dawn, all the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze, when he packed up his sled. Packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. Pooh, pooh to the Who's. He was Grinchishly humming. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. Then the Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo. That's a noise, grinned the Grinch, that I simply must hear. So he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing, without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. And the Grinch, with his Grinch feet, ice cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And then he puzzled 3 hours, till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. The end.
Santa Duck by David Milgram. Nicholas Duck had only one day left to find Santa.
If I don't tell him what I want,
He quacked.
it's going to be another year of socks and underwear.
On his way out, Nicholas found a surprise.
Whoa, baby!
It was a cozy, warm coat and a genuine official Santa hat.
Ho, ho, ho! Jingle quack, jingle quack, jingle all the quack.
Nicholas had no idea who had given it to him, but he liked it. Then Nicholas met a chicken.
Santa Duck,
The chicken said,
I've been looking for you everywhere. And I'd like a helicopter, and a hot air balloon, and a hang glider, and a blimp, and a...
After that, he met a cat.
Has everyone gone bonkers?
I want a mouse and a canary and a trout and maybe a couple of nice plump hamsters. Better bring some eggnog too.
Then he met a turtle.
And a really, really fast race car that goes really, really fast. And a helmet with goggles and flames painted on the side. Look, it's Santa!
Cool.
And a squirrel.
A case of almonds, a case of walnuts, 2 cases of peanuts, and a shovel. Thanks, Santa Duck.
And a rabbit.
All I want is carrot cake the size of a football field. Don't forget the frosting.
Nicholas couldn't figure out what was going on. All he could do was scratch his head. When he did, his hat fell off.
Of course.
he said.
It must be the hat.
So Nicholas gave it to a cow.
Really, I insist.
Gee, thanks, Santa Duck.
The cow was very happy with her new hat. Nicholas was even happier to be rid of it.
Jingle moo, jingle all the moo.
Phew.
Nicholas continued on his merry search again,
Laughing all the way.
until the cow came after him.
Oh, I almost forgot. I'd like a frisbee, a skateboard, sunglasses, a homemade ice cream maker, and an XL Santa hat. This one is too small.
Then came 2 kangaroos, a pig, a mouse, a goat, and Nicholas's own kid brother.
I never knew Santa was a duck.
This is just Santa's helper. The real Santa is a pig.
Make it a red bike with rainbow tassels and a big horn.
That does it.
Nicholas started running and running and running
Leave me alone.
until he ran into Santa himself.
No way.
Way.
Santa asked Nicholas what everyone wanted, and Nicholas told him.
Wow, thanks, Santa Duck. What a great memory you have.
Huh? Santa Duck? Me?
After they said goodnight, Nicholas realized he had forgotten to tell Santa his own list. But it was too late.
Santa, come back. Santa? Santa? Oh no.
Then when Nicholas got home, there was a note on his door.
Dear Santa Duck, thank you so much for your help. I couldn't have done it without you. May I count on you again next year? Gratefully, Santa.
Nicholas felt so proud he forgot all about his list. Getting to help Santa was the best gift he could ever get.
Jingle quack, jingle quack, jingle all the quack.
Well, almost. The end. The Polar Express, written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. On Christmas Eve many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear. The ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. There is no Santa, my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night, I did hear sounds, though not of ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest, then looked up at my window. I put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed downstairs and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols and ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot cocoa as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the lights of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seemed as if we would scrape the moon. But the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountains turned into hills, the hills to snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the Great Polar Ice Cap. Lights appeared in the distance. They looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There," said the conductor, "is the North Pole." The North Pole. It was a huge city, standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first, we saw no elves. "They are gathering at the center of the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who receives the first gift?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He will choose one of you." "Look," shouted one of the children, "the elves!" Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped and the conductor let us outside. We pressed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harnesses. It was a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us and, pointing to me, said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into a sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and he asked, "Now what would you like for Christmas?" I knew that I could have any gift I could imagine. But the thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell from Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. He gave me a hug and told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood holding the bell high above him and called out, "The first gift of Christmas!" A clock struck midnight. As the elves roared their approval, Santa handed the bell to me, and I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeers' names and cracked his whip. His team charged forward and climbed into the air. Santa circled once above us, then disappeared in the cold, dark polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children asked to see the bell. I reached into my pocket, but the only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa Claus' sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. But the train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. I stood at my doorway and waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train, but I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. On Christmas morning, my little sister Sarah and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box behind the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix the hole in your pocket, signed Mr. C. I shook the bell. It made the most beautiful sound my sister and I had ever heard. But my mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." When I'd shaken the bell, my parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell, but as years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas that she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. The end.
"'Twas the Night Before Christmas" by Clement C. Moore, with illustrations by Haddon Sundblom and Garen Baker. "'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief, and I in my cap, had just settled down for a long winter's nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from the bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new-fallen snow gave the luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes should appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment it must be St. Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donder and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. As dry leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they meet with an obstacle mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with the sleigh full of toys, and to St. Nicholas too. And then, in a twinkling, I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry. His cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his finger aside of his nose, and giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim as he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." The end. Thanks for riding the Storytime Train. Please subscribe to enjoy more adventures.